The cold hospital hallway echoed with silence as James, a worn-out veteran with no one left to call family, was wheeled to the exit in nothing but a thin gown and a small bag of medication. Once a proud soldier who had risked everything for his country, now he was just another forgotten face in the system, discharged with nowhere to go. The rain had started to fall gently as he sat alone on the curb outside, coughing quietly, too weak to stand. People passed by, barely glancing at the man who had once worn a uniform with honor. James had long stopped expecting kindness. Day felt heavier than the last, and on that day, something inside him quietly gave up. No home, no help, and no one to call. His eyes closed for a moment, not from sleep, but from surrender. But just as he began to drift into hopelessness, he felt something light tap on his shoulder. It wasn't forceful, but it was firm enough to pull him back to the moment. He turned, expecting another passerby or maybe hospital staff telling him to move along. Instead, he saw a stranger with warm eyes and a calm voice. Who was this person, and why had they stopped for him when no one else did? What they said next would change everything, but James had no idea that this was only the beginning of something far bigger than he ever imagined. The woman knelt beside James, shielding him from the drizzle with her coat. "Hey," she said softly, "you don't have to do this alone." Her voice was steady but gentle, the kind you wouldn't expect from a stranger on a busy sidewalk. James blinked up at her, unsure if he was dreaming or just too tired to understand. She introduced herself as Clara, a nurse who had finished her shift and spotted him outside. Something about the way he sat there silent still didn't let her walk away. James hadn't spoken much in days, but something in Clara's presence loosened a few words from his lips. He told her his name and that he used to serve in the army. That's all. Clara didn't ask too many questions, but she could see there was more to the story. The worn patches on his coat, the old military ID barely sticking out from his bag, and the haunted look in his eyes he had clearly seen more than most ever would. She offered him a ride, but James hesitated. Years of disappointment had taught him not to trust easily. Still, there was something different about her, something real. He finally nodded. But as they walked toward her car, a black SUV across the street suddenly pulled away slowly, as if someone inside had been watching. Them Clara didn't notice, but James did. And for the first time in years, he felt a strange chill not from the weather, but from something he couldn't explain. Clara's car was quiet as they drove through dim back streets toward her apartment. James sat stiffly in the passenger seat, clutching his bag like it was the last piece of his past he still had. He kept glancing in the side mirror, scanning the road behind them. That SUV wasn't there anymore, but something about it lingered in his mind. Years in the service had sharpened his instincts. What he felt wasn't paranoia, it was something real. Clara talked lightly, trying to make him feel at ease. She mentioned working at the VA hospital part-time and how she often saw veterans come in and out, most of them forgotten, like ghosts. James stayed quiet, only nodding now and then. What he didn't tell her was that his discharge from the hospital wasn't just about medical care running out. It was about something deeper. He had overheard conversations, names, and places that didn't belong in a normal recovery room. And he remembered faces, one in particular, someone he never expected to see again, wearing a visitor's badge but never coming to visit. As Clara unlocked her apartment door, James hesitated before stepping inside. He knew this kindness might come at a cost, but he had nowhere else to go. Inside, the apartment was modest but warm. Still, James couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had started at the hospital hadn't ended. Somewhere out there, someone was watching. And they hadn't followed him out of curiosity, they had followed him for a reason. That night, James couldn't sleep. Clara had offered him the couch, along with a blanket and some tea. But his mind kept circling back to the SUV, to the voices he'd overheard in the hospital. And to the man with the visitor's badge, the one who had vanished the moment James tried to get a second look. The more he thought about it, the more he was sure it wasn't just coincidence. Something was wrong. And he had been pushed out of the hospital not because he was healed, but because he had seen too much. Clara noticed his restlessness. "Do you remember anything specific?" she asked quietly, sitting across from him. James hesitated. "There was a patient in the room next to mine. Kept saying weird things, names, coordinates, and ... a date. I thought it was nonsense, but then I heard two men talking outside my room. They said he knew too much." He paused, lowering his voice. "That same night, he disappeared." Clara leaned in, her face tightening. "You think someone's trying to cover something up?" James nodded slowly. "And I think I'm next." Just then, a noise outside the apartment window made both of them freeze. A shadow moved quickly past the glass, and Clara rushed to the curtain. Nothing. But James was already at the door, checking the locks. His hands shook, not from fear, but from the sense that time was running out. He hadn't planned to get involved, he had given up. But now, whatever this was, it had followed him here. James paced the small apartment, his eyes scanning every corner like he was back on patrol. Clara tried to stay calm, but even she felt the shift in the air. Something was off, and it wasn't just paranoia anymore. Then, as James moved toward the hallway, his foot hit something. A small envelope had been slid under the front door while they were distracted. No footsteps, no sound, just silence, followed by the weight of dread. He opened it slowly. Inside was a photo, grainy, black and white, but unmistakable. It showed James standing in the hospital hallway with another man, the one who had disappeared. Written in red ink at the bottom were 3 chilling words: "You saw everything." Clara's face drained of color. How could anyone get this photo? That hallway had no cameras, she whispered. James's heart pounded. That moment hadn't just been burned into his memory, had been watched. And whoever took the picture didn't just want to scare him. They wanted him to know he was being tracked. He turned the photo over and found coordinates scribbled hastily, along with tomorrow's date. The same date he heard whispered by the patient before he vanished. "We need to leave," James said, grabbing his bag. But before they could make a move, Clara's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number appeared on the screen. It read, "If he leaves, she pays." James froze. He hadn't just been followed. He'd brought danger straight to the only person who had helped him. James knew there was no more running. The message was clear: leaving would put Clara in danger, and he wouldn't let that happen. He stared at the coordinates written on the back of the photo, memorizing them. "Stay here. Lock the door. No matter what happens, don't answer it unless it's me," he told her. Clara protested, but James was already grabbing his coat. The rain had picked up again, matching the urgency pulsing through his chest. He found the location 2 miles out. An old warehouse near the docks, isolated and quiet, just like he remembered from his time in recon. Inside, the smell of rust and damp would fill the air. James moved cautiously, staying in the shadows. Then he saw him, the same man from the hospital photo. But he wasn't alone. 2 others stood guard, whispering frantically into radios. Before James could react, a voice echoed through the warehouse. "We knew you'd come." A spotlight flashed on, and hands grabbed him from behind. A struggle broke out, but James had years of training behind him. Within moments, one man was down and the other disarmed. The man from the photo, Clary, scared now, blurted out everything. It was a trial program unofficial veterans used to test unauthorized treatments. "We were told no one would notice. But you saw him, and he talked." James recorded everything on Clara's phone, proof in hand. But just as he turned to leave, a final twist hit him like a punch-on. One of the guard's wrists was Clara's bracelet. She had never been just a nurse. James stood frozen, staring at the bracelet. The same silver band Clara always wore, with a small engraved star on the side. The guard groaned, trying to crawl away, but James pinned him down. "Where did you get this?" he demanded. The man coughed and muttered, "She was one of us," until she changed sides. His thoughts raced. Clara kind, gentle Clara hadn't just found him by chance. She had been sent, but something shifted along the way. Her kindness, her questions, the fear in her eyes, it had all felt real. James backed away, clutching the phone tightly, then ran. He had to confront her. Back at the apartment, Clara sat, waiting, her eyes red. She didn't try to explain when James showed her the bracelet. "I was assigned to watch you," she said quietly. "But when I saw how they left you, like trash outside that hospital, I couldn't follow their orders anymore." James didn't respond at first. The betrayal cut deep, but so did the understanding in her voice. She'd chosen a different path. He handed her the phone. "Everything's on here. Names, details, recordings, enough to expose them." Clara nodded. Together, they walked into the dawn, unsure of what came next, but no longer running. In the end, the story of a forgotten veteran turned into something bigger.